So I know a lot of you may be surprised to see a financial planner warning you not to oversave for retirement, and I get that that's not a very common thing to see. But believe it or not, it is something that I see from time to time, and it's not a terribly common thing, but it is something that happens probably a little bit more often than you might think. So there's a couple of different ways that this can happen, and the whole concept behind this video is you have to handle the financial situations that you're saving for in the order that they're going to come to you. I think a lot of people early on in their lives trying to do the responsible thing start to think ahead for retirement. And yes, you should absolutely, when you start your job, if you're getting a 401k match from your employer, you definitely want to do whatever you can to at least get the match or get the company match. But I do know some people, and have seen some people that have just put everything that they could into retirement before they really had all of their shorter term financial goals sort of set aside and planned for. So for example, in this, if you're saving to buy a house, or you want to start a family, or you haven't you're saving for a wedding, or any other type of short-term expenses, you need to cover those expenses before you're loading up as much as you can into retirement. Otherwise, what you're going to do is put yourself behind the eight ball, because you've got a lot of savings down the road somewhere, but then when you have emergencies and surprises come up, or even things that weren't surprises but you just haven't really saved enough for them, then you're going to have to eventually slow down on that retirement savings, and maybe even cut it off altogether and give up even what the company's matching to be able to pay for these other goals. And then in a worst case scenario, you might even have to tap into some of that savings and pay the penalties and the taxes and everything that's associated with that. So you have to make sure that you're saving for your financial life in, again, the order that you're going to face it. If you are overly ambitious saving for retirement early in your life, as I said, at some point it may come back to bite you a little bit. And in some extreme cases that I've seen, I've met people that are in their 40s who have really large retirement funds already set up. I mean, they have close to $1 million already in retirement assets that are going to be available for them when they're 60 years old. But right now with their lives, at 45 years old, they have 3 kids, 2 of them getting ready to go to college, and they're spending as much as they can possibly afford out of their paychecks. They're not really able to save a whole lot more, and now they're kind of broke, and they're trying to figure out how to get by. They're going to be pretty rich in 15 years, but they are really poor right now. So you really don't want to create that type of situation for yourself and your money life. You want to be able to live comfortably throughout your life. Now, I understand you want, sometimes you have to feel some short-term pain to have the long-term, upsides and the spoils and later in your life, but with some limitation or restriction there. I mean, I don't think you need to be in a situation where you've loaded up on credit card debt and your house is getting foreclosed on, but you've got $1.5 million saved in your retirement fund. That's probably taking that to a little bit of an extreme. One last thing to remember, and I know before I say this that I'm talking to the vast minority of my viewers here. I know this is not going to be something that very many of us have to worry about or think about. But if you truly max out every single possible retirement savings option that you have, and maybe you're self-employed, or you're in a situation where you can really overfund your retirement and put more than the average person can, that's great. And it's awesome that you put yourself in that situation, that you're making a lot of money and can do this. But let's say if you take it to extremes and you're able to establish for yourself a $5 or $10 million 401k or retirement plan through your work or through your company or just your IRAs, that's all great. But one thing you got to remember is that when you turn 70 years old or 70 and a half, you have to start pulling that money out through required distributions. Now, if you have built such a large pile of money that each of those annual distributions is going to be taxed at the highest tax bracket anyway, now you've given up one of the biggest advantages that you had for doing this, and that is being able to defer it at a higher tax rate and then take it out at a lower tax rate when you're retired. Now, you still have had some tax benefits there from being able to defer taxes on the growth itself of it, but that compared to giving up the flexibility of not having this asset for 10 or 15 years was not worth it for some people. For some people it is. Some people, their number one priority is paying as little as they possibly can to the government, but for other people, they might have been better off when they were in their 40s, maybe instead of plowing all that money into a retirement fund, putting it in some type of a deferred compensation plan that they could access when they were maybe 50 years old, that would have enabled them to have 10 years longer of retirement and being able to retire 10 years sooner. So there are a lot of situations where you can oversave. Again, I know that it's a rare thing, and it's something that most of us don't know of anybody who's gotten in that situation, but as someone who's worked with a lot of families and a lot of individuals, it is out there, and it is a risk that we do see occasionally. So just be cautious with that. You do want to make sure that you're meeting all your financial goals, and certainly retirement is one of the big ones, but you just got to make sure you keep it in perspective and remember that even though it may be the biggest thing that most of us ever save for, it is still possible to oversave for it, and it can cost you from other areas that you wanted to spend money on along the way. So just keep that in mind. Just food for thought.